Hey Kevin, how are you this week?
Hi Mike. Yeah, very busy week, honestly, which might explain our slightly unprepared let's go with it podcast this week. But
Yeah, very
yeah,
good.
in a good way. I think things are picking up, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'd agree. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing. Is that yep, sold some new work this week, which is great. Got some new clients onboarded, and yeah, the market seems to be working out what to do in this new world, which is good
Exactly.
news.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it's yeah, kind of a lot more positive, and we'll
Yeah,
continue that way.
and you released your e-commerce report, I believe.
We did last week. Yeah, so that's been a big success in terms of getting lots of attention, all very positive actually. And
Great.
yeah, no, I think that's definitely a big talking point and something that we want to continue with as well.
Yeah, and we'll cover that probably on a separate podcast.
Yeah.
But the topic you wanted to cover this time was
Yes, it's the power of focus.
yeah,
So how over time, the e-commerce report actually will link into that to a certain extent, but it's how kind of getting started, no one knows where they want to go. You just try things, but actually in order to grow, you need to pick a focus, a specialism, and I would say get narrower in terms of what you're doing to really make things work. You can't spread yourself too thin. So
well, why
that's
is that? So, I mean, obviously, clients drive our behaviors in many ways because if people aren't buying anything, then you try and work out why and you refocus. But what's your view on, because there's a big debate in agency land, as we both know,
yeah,
about focus versus diversification.
there is. And I think there's, I guess I'll give you my story of how it's worked for me. Because again, it's as
Yeah.
always with this podcast, it's not a I have all the answers, follow me at all. It's this is what I've worked, this is how I failed and some things and my learnings. But for me, I started as a specialist SEO freelancer, and that was kind of through having an interest and then learning my craft in that topic.
Yep.
And then kind of through my own thought leadership, particularly in writing back in those times, led to attracting clients. And I think the natural journey, certainly my journey, was okay, well, let's take that from a freelancer situation to an agency situation. And then as you start working with multiple clients, those clients, I think in the early days, are typically local. So you attract interest because of what you do and where you do it. And
Yep.
um, with local clients in particular, I find if they find someone they like working with, they'll ask them to do more. And it's kind of a natural extension of what's the closest thing to what you're doing that you could do more of. And there's an element of you need to innovate and improve, and you can't just say no to anything else. And from a business perspective, you normally have ambitions and targets that you want to grow. So if someone's coming to you and they say, you've done a great job in SEO, can you do our paid search?
Yep.
The kind of appealing answer to that is yes, let's double our budget and let's work with you on paid. And then they'll come along and say, okay, well, can you do our social media? Can you do our analytics? And if you look at that logically, let's say you're charging £1,000 per service. You've just taken £1,000 client into potentially a 4 or 5K client. That looks to me like sound business growth advice. So that's a
Yeah.
good way
Yeah.
to do things. And I'm not saying it isn't, but I think the challenge is you then reach this ceiling of you potentially only working with the local clients who wants a bit more of a jack of all trades, like a digital marketing service, as opposed to a specialist.
Yeah. So a full service agency, but on a micro scale.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a business model for that, but I think
Yeah, there is.
you have to pick what you want to do. And for us, it's been
I think that's a low margin business. I think if
yeah,
you become a jack of all trades to a local niche market, it's highly unlikely you're going to be highly profitable.
it is. And I remember we reached a stage kind of quite far into our journey, but we had broadened out our offering for that reason, that we just grow with our clients in the areas that they
Yeah.
ask for. And I remember we had budget to hire one person, and we wanted to hire, in terms of like the client needs that we had to deliver, we were looking for SEO, paid search, and it probably was a bit of social analytics as well. And if there's one person that exists that can service all of them, firstly, they're lying. Secondly, they're not very good.
Yeah.
At least not at all of them, because in my experience, I've done SEO for 17 years. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I would not, definitely not in a self-proclaimed way. And I think that I would always like to be almost like that student of, I'm always learning and improving what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And even if I could call myself an expert of an SEO, I definitely couldn't in paid search analytics or any of the other areas that touch upon it. And I think that's the key thing, is that when you look at what clients want, which is ultimately what we're here for, to serve our clients,
Yeah.
it's typically at the kind of larger client end of the scale, at least, they want specialists. They want the best in the business at that one thing and specific challenge. And if that means they have to work with multiple people, they would prefer to get the best in the business, as opposed to someone that can do everything in a average way. And we certainly, as an agency, reached a point where I think we were good at everything. I don't think there was ever a service we were bad at.
Yeah.
But we lost our way, and we definitely found that we were no longer great at anything. And that's when we went back to our roots of, okay, well, SEO is my passion, and it's what I think our best results for our clients have come from. Sometimes we started to let ourselves down in the sense of some of the other services, and they just, again, they were good, but could we put our hat on saying we're the best in the business at paid search? No. And that's where actually focus has really started to help, because we've pinpointed what is it that we're great at.
Yeah.
And then let's do more of that.
And I think you've mentioned something, something really important about passion. I'm a massive believer, and I say it to my son all the time, is that find something you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
If you find something that you're genuinely passionate about, which has longevity, so, whatever that might be, the chances are, if you build a business around it, if people are willing to pay for that, it's got longevity, because you'll stick with it because it's a passion.
Yeah.
And you won't get up in the morning and go, I'm a bit bored of this, I'll try something different.
Exactly.
I mean, I over the many years, I've built all sorts of businesses and bought and sold businesses and restructured them. There's a couple of things inside me which are real big drivers of why I get up in the morning and why I work long hours and why I try and, the more I practice, the luckier I get, is because I love building businesses. I love working with people like you, client and a friend, and now podcast partner, because you're passionate about your business and you're passionate about your topic. And I enjoy helping people to grow their businesses. And I'm also passionate about negotiation and procurement. As you know, building commercial models. We did it last night. We had a live kind of session together on trying to build a new commercial model for one of our clients.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's fascinating.
Back and forth of looking at things from different perspectives, where neither of us have all the answers, but it's just trying to bring it together. And I think that's right. And the flip side is also true. If you don't have a passion, why are you going to put the work in to make it happen?
Absolutely. I mean, my worst nightmare would be running like one of these massive, big network agencies where it's just all things to all people. When I first joined a big professional services firm many years ago, and I asked one of the directors when I was a junior consultant, what do we do? What do we specialize in? He said, Mike, everything. And I'm like, but I can't go to a client and say, we do everything. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's like, where do you draw the line? Do you take them to the airport on the way to the holiday?
Exactly. I'll pack your suitcases for you. Okay, that's interesting.
Exactly. It's a bit nuts in terms of how far you can go with it. But I know
something you mentioned, by the way, so something that I think would be great to kind of to draw on if you're prepared to talk about it, is the events in your life that drive big changes.
Yeah.
So what's happened to you?
Yeah, so I was actually going to touch upon what you were saying in terms of passion, but when I built and kind of ended up kind of exiting my last agency, which is now formed Resignal, it was a point where I wasn't enjoying myself. If I had too many days in a row where I went into work and felt like, oh, this is a bit of a slog, don't really want to get up today. I don't really, do I want to drive into work and be in the office? And I'm very rarely like that. And if I am, it's an off day.
Absolutely.
The next day I'm back. Or
In
I
fact, I
take,
can tell. I think in the last 12 months, I think I've seen you with one off day.
yeah.
And you
And
weren't well.
normally I'll take a weekend. I don't even need to take a day off sometimes, and it's just like it's fine. It just reset, go for a
Yeah.
walk, whatever. But if I've got even 2 or 3 days in a row like that, there's something wrong. And
Yes.
I definitely reached that point in 2012. So I built an agency from 2006 to 2012, and I think again, hindsight makes this so much clearer. But during that time, sadly, my dad died from cancer,
Yeah.
and I think the reason that I wasn't enjoying going to work was probably much more to do with life than it was work. And it was actually at that point in time, though, that the thing I've realized looking back is I think in running agencies, there's been almost like a 7-year cycle of every 7 years, I feel like we need to reinvent ourselves. Maybe sometimes that's me.
That's a
And
very interesting point, by the way. We'll come back to the 7-year cycle. I've got a theory. There's a 7-year cycle.
That's interesting. They call that. It's interesting. There's a lot with 7 years as well. It's kind of like there's a 7-year itch in personal relationships.
Yeah.
I'm a big football fan. Jurgen Klopp was manager of a couple of German clubs for 7 years each, and then it kind of ran its course. And I like to think that actually stuff doesn't run its course after 7 years, but you can reinvent yourself and do something that can take it to the next level. And for me, the big life events have definitely occurred alongside how we've changed and repositioned and refocused the agency.
Definitely.
And I don't think that's a coincidence that, if I'm honest, at the time, I don't think I picked up on, but I think back, that's not a coincidence. These are the things that make you think, okay, well, life's too short. I'm going to do what I enjoy, or I'm not enjoying this. What could I do that's following my passion? And I feel like this could be better. And I think looking back, for me, there's been probably 2 big life events. Definitely my dad dying in 2012 completely opened my eyes to a number of things and made me look at things in a different way.
Yeah.
Good or bad, but
very sad, but very true.
It definitely makes you think about things, and also going through a divorce as well. That's something that, from an agency perspective, there's no way you can be at your best and go through life events like that. I, in both situations, tried to work my way through it and do my best, but you're completely distracted, and there's emotions and everything else that go through you that means that, okay, I'm not going to have 100% confidence going into that pitch when there's just other things that are going on in your life. And I think for me now, looking back and kind of the other side of that, I would say that in some ways, that taking the good from those situations, it's been a point to reassess and then think about where do we want to go. So
how does it help focus? So on this topic, very interesting. How have those life events changed the way that you focus the business?
So certainly in 2012, I think in Oxford, we ended up, I definitely wouldn't say we were a local agency. We were winning national clients, and it was a good place to be. But I think I'd lost a bit of that passion around the other service areas. And also times had changed. I think back then you could get away with being a jack of all trades because everything was relatively new and it was fast paced and evolving. But certainly in the time 2012 to where we are now in 2020, to be a specialist, you need to have deep expertise. And back then you could definitely get away with, here's a framework and fundamentals, just go away and do it. And now you can't. You need, even the term technical SEO is quite broad because there's so many aspects within that. So I think the first one there was definitely focus in specialization. So kind of more horizontal in terms of what is it that we offer to our clients. And I think the second one has become more vertical. It's actually what type of clients do we do our best work for.
So horizontal, as in you've picked of the bits of the value chain about, let's say, digital marketing, you narrowed it down to, right, it's this. And now you're saying, what kinds of clients, i.e. what sectors do we best serve?
Exactly. And I think, just to go back a step, I think the common logic with this is you start small and you aim big. So
Yeah,
you start as
that's
a
right.
SEO agency that just specializes in e-commerce because we can't do everything. And then you grow into travel, and then you grow into
That's right.
financial services and B2B, et cetera, et cetera. And that
So
makes
that
sense.
point I think is really important. I think so you focus the proposition,
Yeah.
which attracts people that are experts in that area, because people are our businesses. So we amass around us people that are deep experts in our domain.
Yeah.
And then what we do is, to grow your business, you say, well, I'm a deep expert in SEO within certain parameters.
Yeah.
And we're doing that in travel or in e-commerce. And then when you feel like you've dominated that enough or you're ready to grow, you grow by sector. Now let's learn more about travel. Let's have an anchor client in travel and grow more about travel, or in, consumer goods or whatever it might be. That makes a lot more sense to me.
That makes a lot more sense. I don't think that happens. I think
Right.
it happens very rarely. I've seen it in a couple of cases. And I think that's the logical, if I was to advise someone on what they should do if they were starting today, I would absolutely say that. I think what people do is I'm trying to think the best way to word this, but it's almost, I think what you need is, it's almost that abundance mindset. They have a certain amount of scarcity, and it's, if we lose a client, what are we going to do? Because it's the end of the world. And
Yeah.
if we don't win this pitch, we don't have anything else in our pipeline. So actually, what are we going to do in that situation? And I think if you can switch the scarcity to abundance, you can then realize that actually there's so much out there
Yeah.
that you just need to understand who it is that you want. And actually, for every client that you lose, another one will come along. For every
Yeah.
pitch you lose, another opportunity will come along. Their competitor might come along the next day. And it's kind of better prepared for that situation. But I do think,
And word of mouth, Kevin, a big believer in, we both are. If you focus on a sector, so you've got a niche proposition with brilliant people around you, you become known as experts and you're sector focused. Well, people in sectors talk to people in the same sector.
they do.
But they talk to each other. And then you
They
find
move
you get
around.
inbound inquiries.
Yeah.
You work with X, they're in my sector, thought we could have a conversation.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's definitely the way it works. And I think what happens, and certainly in our case, what's happened is we've gone through this journey of, let's be good at one thing, let's try some other things, which is again more horizontally led in the form of services, and then let's go back to what we're really good at and let's nail it.
Yes.
And then let's figure out even more focus behind who do we do a good job for. And in general, our best results for the clients where we can measure business success. So B2B is definitely, B2C, sorry, is definitely something that is more measurable, because whether that's e-commerce or travel, you know how much money someone has paid because it's an online transaction.
Exactly.
Financial services sometimes have that, sometimes it's more lead gen based. B2B likewise, you can work backwards to a customer value, but it's
harder.
But in general, I think if it's an online transaction and people are spending money as an investment in digital marketing, I'm pretty confident we can show them a very positive ROI. And
because you can show the before and you can show the after.
Yeah.
Before you had us, it was this. After you've had us, it's this. You can see the ROI.
That's exactly right. And I think, again, learning from failings, and this is probably a podcast topic in itself, but in the past, we put too much effort on marketing ourselves as an agency. How do we speak at every event? How do we blog every day at some point, probably? How do we make sure we're loud and active on social? And that stuff works. It gets attention, it gets clients. But if you're not doing a good job for your clients and you're not servicing them, there's no point looking great externally.
Absolutely.
In fact, you set yourself up for failure. And the way we've flipped our approach is more inside out. So how do we start by, let's just understand what our clients' KPIs are. Let's get great results for our clients. If we do that, we retain them. If we do that significantly, we grow with them.
Yeah.
They're then more likely to give referrals. They're more likely to be a strong case study. That becomes an award.
Exactly.
The learnings we had from it can become thought leadership. we can invite them to events and they can tell everyone how good we are rather than us needing to say it. But done in a natural way it's what we're here for. We're here to get great results for our clients. And again,
I watched something yesterday on, so it was phrased as user-driven marketing.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice catchphrase, but it's good old-fashioned what we understand as being, if you have brilliant client testimonials and they'll speak about you and they'll therefore work with you on winning awards, then yeah, people are going to be attracted to that. And it's no more complex than that. Do brilliant work. Make sure as part of the deal when you negotiate with your clients that they agree to a testimonial providing we get the results.
Yeah.
Then they do the testimonial, you market that, and that attracts more clients.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's not new. People have been talking. People have been talking about make your customer your hero. I would imagine for long before I even got started in any.
Before you were born.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's not new, but I think again that comes with focus. The more that you can do that, and it's based on results. If you've got clients that you don't get results for, you need to learn from what it is. And actually, interestingly, I went to a supper club event last year, and the person there was did a talk, and he was talking about how there's a great business inside every business. And I thought that was actually quite a good insight, and it got me thinking about, okay, well, what is it that is there? And his point was you just need to find and identify and focus on that great thing, which I thought was a really good tip. I said that to Richard Parsons from Cranfield.
Oh yeah.
His reaction was, yeah, but there's also a really shite business inside every.
There is.
And he's right. They're both right. And there's two different angles.
That's right.
And it's, you do lots of stuff that makes a lot of sense. It makes you money. It makes your clients happy. That's where you should focus. And on the flip side, there's a load of stuff you do that stresses you out, stresses your team out, drains you, doesn't make you any money.
Exactly.
And that's where I think the focus comes from. There's the analysis, but I think you definitely need a step back. Like in my case, those life events, I think, have definitely enabled me to think about what is it we're doing here? Why are we doing that? Like you don't think like that on a day-to-day basis. It could be a holiday. Some of my best ideas are having a walk on the beach. It's definitely not sat on my
right. Yeah, normally I have my creative ideas, and I believe in, creativity isn't Big Bang Theory in my book. Creativity is, if every week I have one small idea and I embed that in the work I do, and then of the 10 ideas in 10 weeks, 5 of them prove to be really great for clients.
Yeah.
That's how I've been, this procurement and negotiation work I've been doing for the last couple of years. If I look back now, there's lots of small incremental things that I'm doing that are now evidenced by clients going, that's great.
Exactly.
Like, small thing, I do surveys now. So before I do any work with a client, I do a survey, and the survey is a baselining exercise. So I give them 12 questions to answer, and they 20 people do the survey, and then they give me the results back, and I feed that back into the beginning of the program on negotiation and procurement insights for their sector. And everyone goes, wow, that's great, because we've now all got a common understanding of where we are.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, exactly.
Simple things that make a big difference.
It does. And I think that's, to me, I've always said innovation is a big scary word that really shouldn't be. I look at it as, break it down into its continuous improvement. It's those daily changes. But then alongside that, I think you do need to take that almost like 100,000 foot view of how do you look back and spot the trends that you don't see on a day-to-day basis.
If you look back to the 1950s, I think it was, when continuous improvement, Kaizen, was invented broadly by a guy called, I think, Deming, who was an American, who went to Japan post-war to help them rebuild their manufacturing economy. And it was all around continuous improvement. Every day, we do one small thing to the manufacturing line to improve the quality of our output.
Exactly.
You take that forward 10 years, you are virtually unbeatable. Yeah.
And there's definitely a maths equation that I can't do on top of my head, but if you improve 1% per day, there's a massive compound interest behind that.
Massive compound interest.
Doesn't mean that you improve 365% a year. It's a bigger number.
Tens of thousands, exactly. Let's draw it to a close because we're probably kind of like 25 minutes, half an hour. So what are your kind of key takeaways from this for our listeners?
I think it's understanding where that value you provide really is, but almost how do you combine that with what your passion is as well? Because that's where you're going to really thrive. And I think if you can pinpoint what is it that you're passionate about and have to add, what is it that your clients value, that's where I think you can take things to the next level. Certainly from an agency perspective, you can become a bit of a commodity in the sense of if you just grow because that's what people are asking for, they're quite often looking for the best deal and shopping on price. If you can actually build a passion and build deep expertise in a specific area, that's where I think you can then hold your prices, charge a premium, and attract the interest from the clients that you really want to work with that are a lot more exciting. So yeah, for me, I think that focus is really important, but also definitely just talking this through, it's how do you even think of those bigger ideas? So the continuous improvement is hugely important, but what do you need to almost get your brain into that state to think of? What do you do? And obviously I wouldn't advise on kind of life events that in a bad way. I would more think about how do you take relaxation and take breaks and switch off, because that might then allow you to look back at the trends and think forwards.
I had a brilliant. So I completely concur with that. Definitely, I think we're absolutely on the same page around focus. Many years ago, I worked for an R&D director when I was an engineer, and he'd always come in the morning, and he'd go, "I've got an idea that I've been thinking about," and in the end, we said, "Clive, you come in like twice a week and do this. What goes on at night with you?" He says, "I have a bath. And in the bath, I get these ideas because I'm in a state of relaxation."
That makes sense. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. In your state of relaxation, when your mind isn't busy with the day's stuff, is when things come to you.
Exactly. Yeah. I know someone that has a notepad that you can use within water because it's in his shower for that reason.
Wow.
But because the best idea is
tip.
Yeah. You can buy them on Amazon. It's like 10 quid or something. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of logic in that. And I also like, just to wrap things up, like the value of actually looking backwards, because I think I'm definitely guilty of, on a day-to-day basis, I might feel like I'm running through treacle. And when I look back to actually where were we 12 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I then realize, okay, those small wins are actually adding up into something that
they really are. I think the Resignal breakthrough around that kind of e-commerce report, you can't write something of that quality and depth until you become experts in your domain and in your sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And then that refocuses the mind. So Kevin, as always, it's been fantastic. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and hope our listeners got a few points out of that they can take forward.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Mike.